This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Chaf, and we're holding on the bottom of Yud Tes Amid Beis, about 8 lines from the wide lines, as we continue quoting a brisa. Now, this is a brisa that we quoted in order to answer up a kasha on Rav as to exactly where the mincha is brought, whether we needed a pasuk or not. But now we're at the end of this brisa, and the brisa now quotes again 8 lines to the bottom. The first word on the line is Chuda Shal Keren Udiyoy. Rav Eliezer Oimer, says Rav Eliezer, Yochel Yishenu L'Mayriv Shal Keren. Says Rav Eliezer, one would have thought, Yagishenu L'Mayriv Shal Keren, bring the mincha either L'Mayriv to the west of the horn, or L'Droim Shal Keren, or to the south of the corn. So you're not sure. So Amrit. So in order to answer this, you say Kol Makom Shata Moitzi Shtei Mikra Ois. Anytime we have 2 psukim and we're not sure. One pasuk will enable us to fulfill itself and fulfill another pasuk. Ve'echad, and the other pasuk mikayim atzmai and umevateles chaveroi, and will not allow another pasuk to be fulfilled. So of course, manichan Hashem mikayim atzmai vatel chaveroi, leave the latter v'toivsin Hashem mikayim atzmai mikayim chaveroi, and grab hold of the pasuk that it's mikayim itself and the other pasuk as well. So that is obvious. You have 2 psukim, and you're not sure which way to go. Should I take a pasuk that enables me to learn itself and another pasuk, or should I take a pasuk that enables me to learn itself and not another pasuk? So of course, take the one that allows both psukim to be fulfilling. So now, based on that, when you say L'nei Hashem, when the pasuk says L'nei Hashem b'ma'ariv, when the pasuk says the cover Menachos be brought L'nei Hashem L'mayriv, to the west of the Mizbeach, that is Padalta B'nei Azbech B'darein. That comes along and then nullifies, that is Mevatel, the pasuk that says B'hem Mizach B'darein. When you say B'nei Mizach B'darein, that's still Kiyamta L'vnei Hashem. It's still fulfilling the pasuk of L'vnei Hashem. And therefore, that's the reason why we do not have to bring the carbon mincha to the southwestern corner. Bringing it L'darim to the south is enough to fulfill both psukim. Says Gemara, how? V'echad kiyamta. 2 lines to the bottom of Rav Ashi, Kosavar Aitana Kulam is Ve'el B'tzafin Koi. An old machloikas that harkens us back to Gemara's in Zvachim, that it's always not clear where is the Mizbeach. Meaning, it's clear where is the Mizbeach, but what's not clear is the Mizbeach considered to be B'tzafain, B'tzafain or not? That is always the question of the Gemara. And says the Gemara, this Mandamar holds that indeed the Mizbeach is considered B'tzafain. Now, if the Mizbeach is considered B'tzafain, what does that do for us? That allows us to explain that even when it's being brought L'darim, even when it's being brought to the south, that is a fulfillment of both psukim. So we'll take a quick moment, and courtesy of Art Scroll, we will open up a quick picture over here, just to remind us, this is a big sugya we had in Zvachim. But basically, the Gemara is saying how the Mizbeach, as you see labeled as altar, is considered all Batzafain. And since it's considered all Batzafain, therefore, that which is right underneath it, where the mincha is being bought, is considered the Daraim. It's considered the south, and that's still going to be El Pinei, towards the face of the Mikdash, the Mishkan, because as you can see, it's considered that it's still facing the Pinei HaMishkan. Okay, that was a shtickle chazara, and from there we continue. And that really ends off the brisa that we quoted, answering up Shitas Rav. Again, just an apology that we're dealing with lack of video today. Hopefully, the next year should yes have video. Maskevla Ravuna, Frakta Ravuna. Hare Melech Lo Tana Beikra. What about salt? Does it didn't have to put salt in the current mincha? Tanu Beikra. The pasuk does not repeat it. And yet, Akva. And the kasha is, Rav said at the end of yesterday's shir, that in order for something to be ma'akev, the Torah has to be Tana Beikra. Torah has to repeat it. So how do you reconcile the fact that the melech, the salt for the mincha, is indeed leikuva, even though it's not repeated? Says the Gemara, Titania is learned in a Bryce, the last line. Bris Melech says the Torah, Bris Melech Oilami, the Bris Melech is forever. Shetahei, from here we learn out as we turn over to Chav Amid Aleph. Shetahei Bris Emuna B'Melech. That there should be a bris of Emuna, a covenant, a bris Emura, excuse me. There's a bris that it said for salt, that what? Every carbon, Shlitavsing Mikarbana, he says, Rashi speaks out, that every carbon is going to need to have salt. Says the Gemara, Divi Rabbi Yehuda, that sheet is Rabbi Yehuda, whereas Rabbi Shimon, Aimer, Nemar Kan Bris Melach, Oilamu. What do you learn from that? Pasuk Nemar is another pasuk is Bris Kuna, Oilam. So we have a pasuk is Bris Melach, and a pasuk is Bris Kuna. And from the two psukim, what we learn now, it says Rav Shimon Kishem, just like Sheyev Shalikarbanais, Beloi Kahuna, Kachiev Shalikarbanais, Beloi Melach. Just like you can't have a carbon Beloi Kahuna, you need a kayin. So too, you can't have a carbon without Melach. So what do we see? Both Shitais of Yudin and Rav Shimon both hold that the Melech, the salt, is Liikuva. The kasha is, but Rav said the only time it's Liikuva is when the Torah repeats it and Melech is not repeated. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, Rav Ketana Di Dan Sfirle. Rav holds like our Mishnah that what? The Amar Loi Melech Kosher. If he did not salt the mincha, it's kosher. So in as much as Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon both held it's Likuva, Rav argues based on the way Rav Yosef is explaining our Mishnah. Says the Gemara Malay Abaye. So Abaye says to Rav Yosef, Yachiv, what you're saying is correct. Lo yitzag nami. Are you going to tell me as well, if you did not pour the oil into the carbon mincha, you're going to tell me the way the taich, the words in the Mishnah is lo yitzag klal, ela lo yatzag koyin, elazar. That's not what it means. When the Mishnah says lo yatzag, as we explained, it just means the koyin didn't pour the oil, but it was poured by a non-koyin. So what do we see? We see that a carbon mincha without oil, of course, is not going to be kosher. But what is the Mishnah honing in on? The Mishnah is saying a mincha, that the oil was poured by a zar, is going to be kosher. So too says Abaye, is kasher to Rav Yosef, achanami loy malach. When the Mishnah said there was no salt placed, that you, Rav Yosef, are answering means there's no salt. And you, Rav Yosef, are saying, and that Rav could hold like our Mishnah, that salt is not likuva. But says Rav Yosef, nay, loy melech koyin, elazar. You know what it means? It just means that a koyin wasn't the one that salted it, but rather a zar did it. But of course, the Mishnah is not coming along to teach us anything about the validity of a carbon without salt, so it can't be a raya to Rav. Amar lei, responds Rav Yosef, I don't understand. You really think that there was a havamina, that the zar went to the mizbeach with the salt of the carbon mincha? Of course not. And therefore, once that is clear, there's no way the Mishnah would have needed to teach that. And therefore, we're back to learning that this could be the sheet of Rav, that salting is not likuva. V'bayisema, second source, kim dechsiva bei bris, keman detani beikra tamya. Since the Torah says bris, it's as if it is repeated. Meaning, the yisoid of Rav, that things need to be repeated, is when it's stam things. But when the Torah labels it as a bris, a covenant, that gives it the taikif, that gives it the power, as if it was repeated. Says the Gemara, "V'loitanu beikra." Frak the Gemara, but is there not a doubling of the pasuk with regard to salt? It says that you should salt it. So we see that we have multiple times the Torah refers to salting. So what? What's all hava mean to say even a kasha on Rav? Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Ahumi Bailech Tanya know me the pasuk for the following brayso. Ilu namar carbon melach. If it only said a carbon with regard to salt, and it didn't say the word mincha. Shameani avilu eitzim v'dam. Shenikru carbon. I would think even the wood on the mizbeach, even the dam on the mizbeach, everything would need salt. Tam alayimar mincha ma mincha miyuchedes. Of course, which is not dam and not eitzim. Ima mincha miyuchadesh emuteres. Av kol shem matir. So wait, but maybe if something, maybe we could learn that just like the mincha is a materes, it creates an allowance. So to anything that's matir. So therefore, avidam shematir. I should learn dam as well. That's matir. The karbanos. Tam aloymar mi'amin chasav loy mi'al damcha. Yachal everything te mincha kula tuna melach. Says the Gemara. So now you know what the next havamin is. Maybe every part of the carbon mincha requires melech and not just the kemitza. Tam aloymar. In order to dispel this motion, says the Torah, carbon. Carbon ta'on melech vein mincha kula ta'on melech. Says Gemara, okay, but now you know that the kaimetz needs melech. How do you know even the levina? Because the levina comes in the same kli as the ke mitzah. Continues the Gemara in the first white line. V'akatayres minchas kayhanim, uminchas kayin b'shiach, uminchas nisachim. Eimuri chatas, eimuri ashem, eimuri kachay kachem, eimuri kachay kalim, ve'evari oila, ve'evari oif. How do you know that all these different entities require salt as well? Minayin, Talmud Leimer, in the fourth white line, al kol karbanacha, takriv melech. That's what you need, the extra pasuk to teach us, and it's not an extra pasuk bechlal regarding the salt of all these karbanos. Amar, let's go back into the brayso we just quoted in the fourth wide line. The says Gemara. But we said a different reason why the mincha is special. Hachi kamar. Ema carbon klal umincha prat. So it says the Gemara. No, really, there was another havamina that we didn't speak out. The havamina was the fact that Torah says carbon. That's a general. The fact that it says minchas a prat, klalu prat, in b'chlal mashe b'prat, so it has to be similar to the prat, and therefore mincha in midiachrini lois. I would have thought only the carbon mincha. Hader amar al kol karbancha. So the Torah repeats chazer klal. So now what do we have? Klal prat klal yat adanal kena prat. Ma'abram b'vur shacherim ban chayven la. Av kol shacherim ban chayven la. What is something that is not a chiyuv? Says the Gemara, that's eitzim. Kol eitzim is not included. Ema levaina. So maybe the vaina as well. V'aisidam dikin nisachim ba'adei amurin udasu. My time achilish tiyam. Adirav a kabara v'zimcha. A levaina. So how do we know levaina requires melech ba'ayini ma bekli echad? Nisachim ein ba'ayini ma bekli echad. Aval eitzim. But when it comes to the word, kechdim iskasha bu minchachim iskasha bu kulay karbanais, and that is the makar with regarding to the melech. Says the Gemara, let's go circle back around to the words of the Brisa that we learned from the mincha that other karbanais as well requires melech. Says the Gemara from a klal upradu klal. Ve'ima, ask the Gemara, ma'abram ifurash, 6 lines from the bottom. Maybe we should suggest that in this klal upradu klal, the klal is mefurash awach acherim ba'in chayvin la. Umateres, and it comes to imata. There's 2 nikudais that are special about the mincha. Av kol shacherim ba'in chayvin la umateres. Oh my new, and what would it come to include? Something that acherim ba'in chayvin la it's materes. My new levaina hava b'vezicha the sharia lechem. Aval, it would only be the levina that comes with the mzichem. Why? Because that permits the bread to be in. Midachrini loy. Says the Gemara, no. Mid-itzterich. From the fact that the Torah had a right. Me'al minchascha. V'loy me'al damecha. B'chad anukulu asu b'chad. Sad that all the details of the karbincha are all weighted on one side, and therefore it can't come to teach only that and nothing else. Amar Mar, let's go a little bit deeper in this. Right, so 3 lines to the bottom. I know it comes to exclude the dam. Says I'll tell you why. Because it's mistaver that the ivarim of the carbon should be included in salt. Ishim kamaisa, chutz kamaisa, neiser kamaisa. Tama kamaisa miila kamaisa. So says Abaye, I'll tell you 6 ways why it makes sense that the mincha is similar to the Evarim. And this is Ashbinat Ma. Says Marachem Achayvala Ishim Chutz Kamaisa Naisa Kamaisa Tum Kamaisa Miila Kamaisa. So says the Gemara, that's by the Evarim. But when it comes to the Dam, not this way. So ask the Gemara if I have a choice. Which one requires Melech? Should we come to Marba the Evarim or Marba the Dam? Avada, we're going to be Marba the Evarim because they're more similar in numerous ways. Says the Gemara as we turn over to Chafa Beveis, Adir Rabba. Says Gemara, what are you talking about? Mamish Vaker, Dam, we should have been Marba Dam. You know why we should have been Marba Dam? Shkei Matir Kamaisa. Because it's Matir in similar to it, which is Nifsol B'Shkei Zachama Kamaisa. It's possible Nifsol B'Shkei Zachama. Says Gemara, Hanach Nefishin. There's more cases, as we just quoted, 6 ways that the limbs are similar to the carbon. So as much as we have 2, but 6 beats out 2. Mar quoting the next part of the Brayso. Shameani afilu eitzim v'dam shenikru carbon. Man shamasloy damar eitzim nikru carbon. Who cares? The Rebbe Bibayo says the Gemara. Excuse me, man shamasloy damar eitzim nikru. Now who cares? Who is the Tana that says eitzim is called a carbon? Rebbe. It says the Gemara, according to Rebbe, the eitzim actually needs salt. The Tanya, carbon mincham lam is on the eitzim. The kama, how much eitzim shnei gzir in the 2 places? Chinoim Rav Agurla sepal nu al carbon eitzim. Rebbe Amr eitzim carbon mincha hein tuna melech utuna gasha. Rebbe is indeed the shita that guess what? The eitzim does require a melech, does require a gasha. Rebbe holds as a din of a carbon. V'amar Rava, the din of Rebbe, eitzim tuna kamitza. You even have to require kamitza like a mincha. V'amar Rabba, the din of Rebbe, eitzim zvichad eitzim. Sami, eitzim zvichad eitzim. You have to bring other wood like any other carbon. So we see that according to Rebbe, guess what? Indeed, even the eitzim need salt. Says the Gemara, Sami Mikan, eitzim, you're right. Delete or wood from the Brayso. Frak the Gemara, but if that's true, so then what's the pasuk coming to exclude? Either muti just dam, me'al minchasa nafka. Clearing it out just from me'al minchasa. Says the Gemara, you're right. Apikil v'ayil nisachem, we'll stop over here. I'll pick it up the top of Chafaf Amin Aleph, Emirtza Hashem.